Michigan found a way to win against USC, kept running the ball. Khalil Mullings breaks free. Then he breaks in. We got a beautiful Bredesen block to break him in. Love when the fullbacks get involved. But, Ari Wasserman, can Michigan win like that going forward?
I guess the answer to that question is who are they playing? But I guess also, too, we thought that USC's team was one of the top 4 teams in the Big Ten coming into the weekend. So I guess maybe the answer is yes. But it is a truly remarkable thing to go look at the way that Michigan won this football game, because it's not very often that you will see a team where a quarterback throws for 32 yards and they win, especially, in a situation where they only score, 13 points in the second half and the last touchdown comes in the final second. So, I'll give Sherrone Moore credit. I think he did exactly what you implored him to do, which was to, accept who Michigan is and do everything in his power in order to get the most out of it. So from a coaching standpoint, I think that they did a tremendous job of getting this win and eking it out. But from an offensive standpoint, if I were a Michigan fan, I would be delighted that we won, but I would also be terrified of what could be down the road. I don't know that I'm feeling like, okay, we're back in the playoff hunt now,
Yeah. The next step for Sherrone Moore, because he did exactly what everybody was begging him to do last week, which was figure out the best way to make this group the best it can be this week, which is, he looked at the roster, he looked at the quarterbacks, he said, Alex Orji's got to be the guy, and we're going to build a game plan around Alex Orji that will give us a chance to win. That's exactly what they did, and that's great. Now that needs to evolve into an offense where Alex Orji can throw the ball a little bit, where he can at least keep the defense somewhat honest so you're not running into 9-man boxes. The thing is, there's a lot of teams that Michigan plays where even against a 9-man box, they're going to be able to successfully run the ball. But there are also some teams that are going to straight up beat them if that's all they can do. Conveniently enough, though, Ari, Minnesota is coming to Ann Arbor on Saturday. This is the one team that you'd say, well, if we got to play like this, this is who we want to play like this against. Because what happened to Minnesota on Saturday night? They lost a pig because Iowa did exactly what Michigan's going to do and just ran the ball down their throat. Cade McNamara completed 11 of 19 passes. I believe it was for 64 yards. And Iowa
actually
just
double what Orji threw for.
Yeah, double what Orji threw for, but it did. Look, it doesn't matter. The passing yards are negligible in both these games because both teams ran the ball down their opponents' throats. Minnesota is not going to be able to stop Michigan in the same way that it was not able to stop Iowa, we think. Now, Freezing Cold Takes, feel free to grab this one if they do. But I think Minnesota will go into that game very similar to how it went into the Iowa game, where, okay, they're going to run the ball at us. Let's try to stop it. And they couldn't stop it. So this week for Michigan, you have a chance to get some stuff figured out. Then they're at Washington, another place where you have a chance to get some stuff figured out. Washington is in rebuild mode. You should be able to try some stuff, see if it works. After that, you're at Illinois, you play Michigan State, you play Oregon, you're at Indiana. Those are all losable games if this is all you can do. If you can't do anything but run the ball, you could go 0-4 in that stretch if you don't evolve the offense. So that's the next step for Sherrone Moore, is figure out how to get something out of your passing game. Now, Ari, it may just be as simple as Colston Loveland coming back.
Yeah, I mean, not having your best, weapon in the passing game certainly plays a factor into what went on here. But I think that you made a point on the podcast that is probably the perfect way to look at this, Andy, which is, Michigan won the national championship last year. They lost a ton of talent from the team that won the national championship, and Sherrone Moore was not put in a position from a timing standpoint to improve the roster. So, you kind of have to be who you are and allow him to, eke out every ounce of value that they can have. But you don't come into this year feeling like you're probably going to win the national title again. So,
No.
I don't know that I'm devastated if I'm Michigan. If you're gonna shed some tears about the way they've played so far this year, then you can use the same rag that you use to polish off your national championship trophy to dry your tears. I think that they're in a pretty good position to win a lot of these games and just go full on Big Ten West demon. I wonder if they're just going to be the best Big Ten West team from the last 5 years this year. And if so, that probably gets you to 8 wins, which probably isn't that bad of a scenario considering what they are dealing with at the quarterback position. Now, the question is do you have any confidence that Orji or, Davis can get this back and just become kind of semi-proficient passers this year, or if you think that's just a lost cause?
Well, because if you have a semi-proficient passing game with that running game, then you actually have a chance to sneak up and beat somebody that maybe you shouldn't. And then maybe you're talking about 10-2 and make the playoff. I think that's the ceiling on this team. And that would be a massive accomplishment given the circumstances where Sherrone Moore did not have a chance to improve the roster because Jim Harbaugh did not make the decision to leave until the middle of January. And there was nothing that you could do about that. There's nothing that Sherrone Moore could do. The players that he would have gotten out of the portal were already gone to other places. It is what it is. But I will say, him establishing his team's personality, because you kind of wondered, it's his team now. Will it look like the Harbaugh team? And look, it is a similar personality to what Jim Harbaugh wanted at the end of his tenure there. But now this will be the personality of the Sherrone Moore teams. And that in the future, he's going to add a more dynamic quarterback. And when you sprinkle a more dynamic quarterback into what you saw yesterday, you have a team that can compete for titles year in and year out, because that sort of offensive line play, that sort of defensive line play works everywhere, in every venue, against every opponent.
Yeah, I mean,
so
I also
dynamic quarterback play to that. The future is very bright.
Yeah, last year Michigan ran the ball so well and played such good defense that it was easy to forget that they had a 5-star quarterback on their team.
Yeah, a first-round quarterback. Exactly. Yeah.
So if you have a first-round quarterback, and say what you want about J.J. McCarthy, I was always one of the people who questioned his ability to go out and win a game for the team. And the truth is that the guy made plays in crucial moments repeatedly throughout his entire time.
The Rose Bowl. They don't win the Rose Bowl without J.J. McCarthy.
So, that to me is the trump card here when it comes to, being an 8-4 team and a 10-2 team or an undefeated team. And Michigan has a personality and it knows what it wants to be. And I think you can recruit to that. But also at the same time, it's kind of hard to replace as much as they lost last year when you're not recruiting like Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama year over year success. This is something that you're going to have to build for and be really, really good, once every 3 or 4 years.
I actually think Sherrone Moore is going to try to recruit like that, though. I will bet that
we've been waiting for
attempts to recruit in a different way than Jim Harbaugh did.
Yeah, and it is interesting because I was the forefront of saying that the way that Jim Harbaugh was building his roster could never win a national championship. I would scream it from the mountaintop the last 10 years of my life. And it proved to not be correct, right? Michigan built a veteran team. They added guys in the portal, especially on the offensive line, that were good. And they sprinkled in really, really elite skill talent at the running back position, the cornerback position, and the quarterback position. And they ended up winning the national championship. So who am I to judge? But the thing that I will say, Andy, is it is always very fascinating to me. And I think we saw this a little bit with Michigan State when they got really good in the mid 2010s, 2015 to 18 or whatever, whatever that run was under Mark
2016
Antonio
class. Yep. I know what you're talking about.
Where you do something and you change who you are and you try to be something that you aren't. And then it explodes in your face and you regress to a point that you never thought you could regress to. I'm not saying that could happen, but I don't know if Michigan operates in that same recruiting realm. Sherrone Moore is going to go try to win 5-star defensive tackles out of Atlanta. I don't know if Michigan is built to do that. And if they are, great. But I think that the plan that Jim Harbaugh set forth might lead to some down years, but when they're really, really good, they can win a national championship. And hell, Andy, they did it. So I don't even know what the right course of action is as a program builder there right now.
And if the down year is 9-3, you can live with that.
Yeah.
So we'll find out. But I think this is this is probably if that is what Michigan's going to be under Sherrone Moore, if that's the personality, then this is probably the floor. This level of talent and team is probably the floor. And that is really encouraging.
I mean, the floor with 3 first-round draft picks on their defensive side of the ball. Like, I think that, like,
well, who's to say they're not going to keep making first-round draft picks on the defensive side of the ball?
No, I understand. But when's the last time Michigan had, if you go back the last 2 years, had this type of talent on their defense all at the same time? Like, it's not a very regular thing. So you have to. And one of them's a 5-star corner that all happens to be the son of a former Michigan player. So
correct.
It's like
I gotcha.
It's like it's not. I'm not saying it's impossible, but that isn't the norm. Like if you go out and you try to recruit,
but I would say it was the norm. Now again, Sherrone Moore has to keep this up. But they were getting guys. Aiden Hutchinson was always going to go to Michigan, but they were getting guys who became elite players.
And like Mason Graham wasn't a 5-star player, so like you can still get
neither
those
was Kenneth
guys
Grant.
You can still get those guys the way Michigan gets them. So, the evaluation and development piece is always going to be important there. I'm not trying to say that, Michigan's floor isn't 9-3, but what I am saying is it takes a tremendous amount of work, effort, and success to put them in a position from a talent perspective to be able to win the football game that they won last night. Like they won against USC by throwing for 32 yards because their defense is so good. And then then it wasn't enough. So like, I think that the next 3 years of Michigan football is going to be absolutely fascinating. And I cannot wait to see how Sherrone Moore goes about, building this program's roster and personality.
And I think the next week of Michigan football should go okay because the schedule worked out great where you're getting the perfect team to play in this particular situation. So sorry, Gophers, you're essentially going to have to deal with the same thing again next week. Michigan, you can probably get away with it one more week, and then you got to start figuring some stuff out.